LawSikho's thorough newspaper analysis for 21st February 2023. Starting with the today's editorial session, the problems with the data protection bill, one of the most important articles of today's session from The Hindu, and the designation of senior counsel, what center wants from The Indian Express, followed by the news update and the legal news. Starting with the first editorial session, that is the problems with the data protection bill. The Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology came forward with a digital personal data protection bill with the aim of giving the individual the right to protect the privacy of his data while also allowing the processing of the same data for lawful purposes. However, even after the scrapping of the previous data protection bill and the introduction of a new bill, several lacunas have been pointed out in the new data digital personal data protection bill. Now, the problems with the data protection bill are as follows. Firstly, the provision of the bill dilutes the provision of Right to Information Act, wherein citizens were empowered to hold government accountable. The claim for privacy under Section 18 subclause 1 can only be made if it can be shown that the information has no relationship with any public interest. Further, the section also provides that whatever can be disclosed in front of the Parliament shall also be disclosable to the general public. The bill seeks to remove this provision and exempt all personal information from the ambit of right to information. Secondly, the proposed bill creates wide discretionary power for the central government and thus fails to safeguard people's right to privacy. Even private entities can be relieved of the compliances laid down under the law by the central government merely through the issue of the notification. Third, given that the government is the biggest data repository, it was imperative that the oversight bodies set up under the law be adequately independent to act on violations of the law by the government entities. However, the bill does not talk about the autonomy of the Data Protection Board. The central government is empowered to determine the strength and composition of the board and the process of selection and removal of its chairperson and other members. The chief executive are also appointed by the government. The bills also stipulates that the Data Protection Board shall be digital guidelines, including receipt and disposal of complaints. However, according to NFHS data, only 33% of women have ever used the internet. Hence, the bill fails millions of people. Now, coming up to the second editorial session, designation of senior counsel, what center wants. The center is seeking to change the guidelines for administering the title of senior counsel in the aftermath of Indira Jaising versus Union of India, one of the prominent cases of the Indian judiciary. The Indira Jaising judgment had held that the guidelines in themselves were not exhaustive and the court should look into it if the same became necessary. Designation of senior counsel, in terms of what center wants, what are the pointers that needs to be looked upon. In resonance with the Indira Jaising judgment, the Apex Court released the guidelines to regulate the conferment of designation of senior advocates. The title, as per the argument proposed by the center, is conferred upon advocates who have shown monumental competence and contribution to the field of law and advocacy. However, the point-based evaluation system awards 40% weight to publication and personalities, including suitable gauged in an interview which is arbitrary. The center has argued that the referred publications are often in bogus and sham journals, wherein anyone can have an article published by paying a nominal fee. There is no resemblance of an academic review in this journal before the article is put out. Instead, the center wants to bring in a secret ballot system where the judges shall opine on the elevation without the fear of embarrassment. The practice will also decrease the practice of campaigning by lawyers. Coming up to the news update of the today's session, virtual launch of UPI Pay Now linkage between India and Singapore. Singapore is the first country with which cross-border person-to-person payment facility has been launched. This will help the Indian diaspora in Singapore, especially migrant workers, students, and bring the benefits of digitalization and fintech to the common man through instantaneous and low-cost transfer of money from Singapore to India and vice versa. Coal India Limited converts 30 mined out areas into ecotourism destinations. It will be providing a source of income for locals and boosting the region green cover. Coming up to the next news update, Operation Dost. Indian Army Field Hospital treated over 3,600 earthquake victims in Hatia province. The operation was a relief operation of Indian Army in Turkey. Coming up to the news update, EPFO now allows employees to opt for higher pension. EPFO has now allowed subscribers to go beyond the pensionable salary capped at rupees 15,000 a month, on which employers deduct a sum equal to 8.33% of the actual basic salary towards pension under Employee Pension Scheme. Coming up to the next important news update, new Chief Executive of Niti Aayog, BVR Subramaniam. The sixth news update, Turkey, Syria hit by earthquakes again. A magnitude of 6.3 earthquake struck southern Turkey near the Syrian border on late 28 February 2023. Coming up to the legal updates, false claim about educational qualification in election affidavit, not corrupt practice as per RP Act by Honorable Supreme Court in Anugrah Narayan Singh versus Harsh Vardhan Bajpai. The Honorable Supreme Court held that since the Indian diaspora does not vote based on educational qualification of the candidate, false claim of educational qualification in election affidavit could not be termed corrupt practice. General power of attorney holder can subdelegate his powers if there is a specific clause permitting subdelegation by Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Meta India Private Limited versus Mahendra Jain. That's all for today's news update. Stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching.